I'll do another election update here because we do have some new data and a little bit of movement, so it seems to be kind of an appropriate time. The big thing today, of course, is the Rasmussen poll came out with Trump up 1% at 47%, with Biden at 46, 3% preferred other candidate, and 4% undecided. So that's a continual move up from previous polls. I think it was as low as 10% at one time several weeks back, 10% deficit, that is, compared to Biden, and now he's ahead by one. That is Trump. And so there you're having some real change. The real clear politics average of polls is now at 6.2%, which moves from, let's say, about 7.5 last week. So again, that movement in Trump's direction is continuing in a course of a broader average of polls, as well as in the Rasmussen results. Now, and I tend to, again, like I said, I tend to have a lot of preference for Rasmussen. Of course, a lot of people are probably thinking Rasmussen has lost it and they're hanging themselves out to dry. But again, I tend to think that the bulk of most polling organizations are run by people that are fundamentally anti-Trump, and so I tend to be a little suspicious. Fox is kind of a special case because although the broader organization may well be nominally pro-Trump, again, that depends on who you're talking to. Fox and Friends, yes, pro-Trump. The nightly lineup, yes, pro-Trump. The daytime people and people like Chris Wallace, that's a whole different game. So, and I don't know. I mean, I think they've historically tried to present an image of being somewhat fair and balanced, whereas I think a good lot of the rest of the media has deliberately decided to present an image of being imbalanced. So you can take it for what it's worth. But historically, I've always thought that Fox polls are just a wee bit biased toward the Democrats in spite of the reputation of the organization. Who knows why that is? So anyhow, I think that's a major result that's kind of going in our direction. Well, it'll stay that way or not. Now, the approval number today was 52% approve, to 48% disapprove, or was it 47? And there's always a little round off error in the way they do things because they don't carry it out the last decimal place. But so that gives you an idea of about where we are. It looks like continual improvement for Trump, and the Real Clear Politics battleground states averages 3.7% in favor of Biden. There's been some movement, I think, in Florida and North Carolina, kind of heading in overall kind of in Trump's direction. Maybe a little bit of back off today, but some new polls. But that's very competitive, and Wisconsin still looks a little tricky. I'm not sure what's going on there. I think there's been some of these states are just hard to poll. I mean, when we had that Rasmussen result with Ohio, with Trump behind by 4 points in Ohio, I was kind of like, that doesn't seem to match up with any of the national numbers to me. So, but we'll see how that turns out. But one thing, the significance, if for example the 1% advantage in the popular vote was actually accurate as a hypothetical, that would translate into a electoral landslide in all probability, because you have to consider, again, you have very high population states like California, New York, Illinois, and even reasonably big states like New Jersey and Massachusetts that are hardcore Democrat. And so that would seem to indicate, whereas Texas may be the only really large state that tends toward Trump's direction, and yet they still continue to consider it to be a battleground state to some degree. At least Fox does. I tend to think that's going to go Trump. The question is what the margin is. Again, the real thing I think that plays in this race, again, that in the last one we had nearly 6% of people voted for other candidate. Okay, about 4% went for the Libertarian, about 2% went for the Green Party candidate. So you might think the Libertarian vote, particularly in this case, because the candidate was a former kind of moderate Republican governor rather than a typical Libertarian. In fact, I really don't think the guy really was a true Libertarian. may have siphoned off a fair number of what you might call the Republicans that don't like Trump crew, and I guess the people that were the radical Bernie type people may have voted for the Green. Uh, Trump seems to continue to believe he got a bunch of Bernie people voting for him, which I guess there are some that did. I still find that to be rather an interesting figure, a person that goes from Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump. But we'll leave that to people's consideration. So what I have coming up here in a second is the a detailed internal analysis of yesterday's actual Rasmussen approval poll. And that one's a 51-48 poll, but it's within a hair of the one today. And so let's take a look at that and see what you think. So I want to take a look now at the Rasmussen presidential approval numbers. When you take a look at this, these are from yesterday. I think Trump tweaked up just a little bit today to 52% total, but this will be illustrative of what the internals look like. Okay, so you have a total approval of 51% and 48% disapproval. Now, when you look at the breakdown between the different factions here, we have Democrats, Republicans, and basically other, which is the independents. You'll see that basically the approval is 83% with the Republicans, 21% with the Democrats, and 51% with the other or independents. Okay, now what's really novel about this whole situation, compared to the one I did previously a few weeks back, we now do have something like a normal gender gap in here, in which the total approval for men is 55% and women is 46%. And that seems to be a little bit more in keeping with most polling results than the one where they were nearly the same. Now, what's also interesting to note here is that the white approval is kind of low at 52%, I would say, compared to what you might typically expect. And yet the black approval is at 31%, of which, so that's a very interesting number right there. And then we have 58% in other, which of course would be your Latinos, Asians, and so forth. And that's a very high number for that. So it looks like what we're seeing here in the internals of this poll is a degree of what you'd call realignment. That is to say that that Trump is apparently losing support with certain sectors of the white community while gaining it with the various minority communities. And that's what's kind of novel about these Rasmussen results. I've seen lesser tendencies. I think a recent Fox poll kind of shows the tendency in terms of the Hispanic vote, but not so much in terms of the African American vote. So again, the variation with polls. I saw a few weeks ago a CNN poll right around the convention time, which also had a fairly high Hispanic number in it compared to what you normally think. So, although not near as high as this. So these are interesting results, and we just have to take them for what they are. And but it is a component of the approval numbers that Rasmussen's getting. So also going forward, the other major events lately, I guess, of course, is Trump's appearance on the town hall with Stephen Stephanopoulos. Trump ventures into the lion's den and has some undecided voters that are not necessarily pro-Trump, except for maybe one or two of them. It wasn't that bad of a setup. I mean, obviously there was a couple of kind of ambush things. There was and I think that Trump handled himself very well from what I saw, but I didn't get to see all of it because I was on a phone call with a friend for a part of it and I was just watching on closed captions. And then I watched the final half hour or so. But my perception is that he handled himself pretty well. I see this as basically a warm up for the debate in a couple of weeks to see how he'd handle it. I mean, there were several things that were kind of tried, which I think he did a pretty good job of handling. There may be one issue. There's some things, you could always say he could have brought up this or that, but I think basically it was a solid performance and a good warm up for the debate. assuming the debate happens. There's still some consideration. Will Biden really show up for a debate? Really? I mean, he obviously is having some difficulties. And this latest thing where they introduced Kamala Harris introduced the idea of the Harris Biden ticket or administration. That's kind of funny, and it's something that I think everybody needs to take into account. If you're a person who's kind of on the edge and maybe has some antipathy to Trump, but you need to think very much of what's your reaction to Kamala Harris as president. If that really runs you the other direction, I would seriously suggest you vote for Trump. I know that the day on the 16th of September, Rush Limbaugh focused a lot on what I've been saying on my Twitter for a long time, and even on here, I think in a previous video, that this is an election that very well may be the most significant since 1860. I think it will if Trump wins, the country goes along more or less like we're used to it. And I think that's a pretty nice place. If Trump loses, there's going to be some attempt to make a political power grab to the left that'll be kind of stunning in its magnitude. And the real question is, how do you get back out of it once they've done it? It's sort of like when you break it, it's pretty hard to put it back together again. So, and the truth is, a lot of our, in quotes, constitutional system is very fragile, really. I mean, a key part of it, the filibuster in the Senate, can be wiped away with a single vote of a simple majority, even though the actual principle itself involves it takes 60 votes to even open debate. You see how this is all kind of based on a very simple thing. The Constitution itself is really only what 5 justices on the Supreme Court think it is. Of course, that could change quite a bit if there's 11 justices on the Supreme Court, and 2 of them have a particularly radical ideology to join with the remaining 4 liberals. Of course, we don't know. Sometimes the courts do want to maintain a tradition, but I wouldn't bet on protecting anything based on that. I really wouldn't. I think it's very iffy, and I think electing Trump at this point is the best way to send a message to the Democrat Party, and hopefully have it kind of back off from this radicalism they've been showing here, and get back to something a little bit more like normal liberalism. Well, at any rate, that's kind of what I have for today, and so if you like these videos, again, like and subscribe to the channel, and you can forward links to them to friends if they're interested. And until next time, all for now.